Hello, pod peeps. Welcome to The Making of Madrid, a podcast about life in Madrid covering history, culture, food, and much more. The show is presented by me, Felicity Hughes. I'm a tour guide and freelance writer, and you might have seen my work in Lonely Planet or the Financial Times. Christmas is almost upon us, and so I've got an extremely fruity episode for you today. Actually, we're going to be talking about the madroño and the uvas de suerte, or the lucky grapes. So these are two really important fruits that emerge at this time of year. So let's begin with the madroño, because the madroño is the absolute iconic fruit of Madrid. And you might actually have seen the madroño if you're walking around the town centre. Now, streets like Calle Mayor are going to be absolutely blazing with Christmas lights. But if you look out carefully on the trees along that street, you might be able to see a tiny bauble-like fruit that's bright red and very Christmassy. And this fruit is actually edible, although it looks a little bit spiky and unwelcoming. You can eat it. This is the madroño. And madroño is often translated as strawberry tree, although strictly speaking, it's a bush, or arbusto, as they say in Spanish. Now, the madroño is a key element in Madrid's symbol. So if you go around the city on taxis, bins, manhole covers, what have you, you'll see the bear with its front paws against a strawberry tree. And this is the oso, the bear, and the madroño. Particularly famous is that statue in Seoul, which was actually installed in the 1960s and has now become like a selfie spot central, where if you want an iconic picture of yourself in Madrid, you go to Seoul and you have your picture taken by the oso and madroño. There's always a big queue to do it, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's worth doing. People have started actually stroking the back of the bear's hind leg for luck, and it's now become rather polished with all the hands. It's become so popular. Anyway, so why this strange bush or tree, the madroño? Why is that part of the city's coat of arms? Well, it's kind of weird because botanists think it's not particularly native to the region. But the theory is that the madroño appeared on the coat of arms because the leaves cured a king of the plague. So now it's planted everywhere, and you can see it all over the city. If you're in Retiro Park, for instance, there's a library in Retiro Park, and the Paseo de los Carros, which goes in front of that, it's planted all along that road. And I think it's probably healthier to pick and try the fruit there because you're not right by a main road, you're right in the middle of the park. So if you want to have a little taste of the madroño, that's a good place to do it. So that's the madroño, but the bear itself is definitely native to Madrid, although it's kind of the fortunes of both have gone in reverse, because whereas the madroño wasn't very present back in medieval times, and there were bears kind of roaming the forests around Madrid, now the bears have disappeared, but the madroños are everywhere. There must have been a point in which they intersected where there were both bears and madroño at the same time. But there's certainly kind of iconic bears and madroño everywhere. The bears were one of the reasons why kings and Spain's kings loved coming here, because they loved to hunt. So Casa de Campo, for instance, was really popular with the kings who would like go hunting out there. And, all the way back to Alfonso VI of Leon, who was the king who came and conquered the city and took it out of the hands of Muslim rulers. His descendant, Alfonso XI, there's a lot of Alfonsos, by the way, in Spain's history. So Alfonso XI was said to have been so pleased with bagging a huge bear out by El Pardo, which is an area to the west of Madrid where there's another royal palace, which is really, really connected with the royal family and hunting. So if you go there, you'll see lots of motifs all over the palace to do with hunting. I love it. There's like animals painted all over the walls. Anyway, Alfonso bagged himself a bear out by El Pardo. And it's said that from this point onwards, this was added to the heraldry borne by his knights who went out fighting in his name. Initially, the bear was on all fours and he was on a field of silver. And he first appeared during a campaign against the kingdom of Murcia. And shortly after, another element was added. So 7 stars representing Ursa Major or Ursa Minor. We're not quite sure, but as there are 7 stars on both constellations, it's one or the other. These appeared on the body of the bear and were later drifted to the edges of the shield. There's been various redesigns of the coat of arms of Madrid. And if you want a good overview on it, you can go to my blog and look at the post called The Bear and the Strawberry Tree. So this was sort of part of the heraldry they used to sort of go on their military campaigns and expand the territory of sort of Catholic Spain. In order to expand this territory of Catholic Spain, they were, of course, reducing the territory of Muslim Spain, but they very much relied on the support of the church for these kind of campaigns. Now, the church would support military campaigns like this as long as they got land in exchange. So it's said that in the 13th century, a spat broke out between the church and Madrid's council, and eventually agreement was reached in 1222, and the clergy was granted a lot of land used for farming, while the town or the crown got wooded areas. So this agreement was cemented in the city's heraldry, and the bear with its paws against the trees shows that the land was owned by the council. And this was all sort of hunting land. And again, we think that they chose the madroño at this point because it sort of probably had some kind of legend attached to it that the king had been cured of the plague. Of course, we're talking about medieval times, so the plague was a great threat. And the leaves of the madroño tree were used to make a sort of little brew that people used as a cure for the plague. So I don't particularly recommend you try this brew. It might be fairly noxious. But do try the spiky little fruit, because you should see it all around now. It ripens around November to December. And while you can try it, you might not like it that much because it's not particularly sweet. It's spiky, as I said. It's got a rather gritty texture. But the best thing that you can do is try it in liqueur form. And they sell it in bars around the Plaza Mayor, where it's served in chocolate covered wafer cups. Now, my favorite place for this, and I've said it 10 trillion times, is El Madroño. El Madroño, which you just have to cross over the road. If you get to Plaza Cerrada, if you cross over the road, you'll find El Madroño, not to be confused with the other Madroño. This one is slightly further away from Plaza Mayor, but this place is fantastic for several reasons. So if you go inside, you can actually see the development of Madrid's coat of arms in some wonderful tiles that are behind the bar. And if you order a drink in there, they are one of the few places in Madrid that will give you a free tapas that goes beyond the usual standard bowl of crisps or potato chips if you're American. The standard thing in Madrid in terms of tapas is potato chips or olives. I recently visited Granada, and Granada, I have to say, has Madrid beat on free tapas. So if you go to Granada, they'll give you deep fried boquerones, like deep fried little fish, absolutely free with your meal. With your drink. And you just get all manner of delicious little bites for free with your drink in Granada. You can go out drinking and eat your fill at the same time and not have to go and order dinner. It's that good. This culture isn't quite the same across Spain. Although Madrid is better than Barcelona or Valencia in terms of this, because you don't necessarily get a free tapa in those places. Madrid will give you a free tapa, but you will have the standard is potato chips or a bowl of olives. And I should say crisps for English listeners. I tend to use a lot of Americanisms because I've lived so long outside of the UK. But and I often have clients who are American, so I've kind of got into the habit of using American terms. But please don't burn me at the stake for that, British listeners. Anyway, El Madroño, getting back to El Madroño, is one of the few places that goes beyond this. They would be ashamed to give you a bowl of crisps. They will actually give you something really substantial like slices of cheese, slices of cured meat, or the last time we went, we ordered a couple of beers and got a little plate of seafood paella free with our beers. Now, if you visit my Instagram, you can see the free plate that we got, and along with fantastic food that we got served, I forgot to take a photo of the croquetas, and I should have done because my husband was raving about them. He's a real croquetas gourmand, sorry. He loves them. And he said that they tasted like a classic version that he remembered from his youth. So yeah, they were pretty good croquetas, I have to agree. And we also ordered a lovely plate of squid, which was really well done. And at the end, when we all asked for the bill, which was very reasonable, the waiter came up with a bottle of madroño liqueur. So you can just go in straight into El Madroño and order madroño liqueur, but I really recommend that you go and have a meal there because the food's great and it's really reasonable, and they give you this free. They give you this for free, a little chupito or shot in a wafer cup covered in chocolate of madroño liqueur, which is absolutely delicious. And that's your little free chaser at the end of the meal. And they're absolutely a delight as well. The waiters are really friendly. One of my 5-star places of Madrid. So that about wraps it up for the madroño. But I will also say that if you're looking for a great souvenir and a Christmassy souvenir of Madrid, buy a bottle of madroño liqueur. They do sell it in El Madroño. I should ask El Madroño for some money because I'm always hyping them. But they are just genuinely one of the really good bars in Madrid. But let's go on to the next subject because, of course, we're so close to Christmas and now we're going to roll over into the new year. And I wanted to talk about the lucky grapes. So, on New Year's Eve, everybody gathers in Madrid in Sol, and they stand in front of the Casa de Correos. The Casa de Correos is an 18th century building that used to be the main post office to Madrid. And on top of this building is a clock tower. Now, the clock came quite a bit later, in 1866, I believe. The clock is really interesting because it was actually a gift to the city by a guy called José Losada, who was Spanish but had got British citizenship and had become a clockmaker in London. And this is a sort of classic thing that ties into all these jokes about Spaniards and timekeeping, because the clock that was installed before this was always so bad and losing time that nobody would trust the clock in Seoul to tell you the right time of day. The clock that José Losada installed, though, is so good that it only loses 4 seconds a month, which is incredible for a clock that was installed in the 19th century. And one particular feature of this clock is that it's got a ball that drops at midnight on New Year's. And this ball dropping that everyone gathers in Seoul to watch, this signals the new year. And it also is the signal for everybody to eat 12 grapes. And these are called the uvas de suerte, or the grapes of luck. And it's quite difficult to neck 12 grapes, so everyone gets them ready. I've had many New Year's Eves here in Spain, and what we tend to do is we watch a TV program at my husband's aunt's house, and the camera is trained on the clock. And before the ball drops, in about the half an hour before this happens, we're all sat there diligently peeling our grapes and taking out the seeds so that we can neck 12 grapes on each bong of the clock. And that's meant to bring you good luck. It's actually a very modern tradition, though, that went back to 1909 when there was an excessive grape harvest, and the grape, to try and encourage sales, the grapes were labeled the grapes of luck. People think the origins also have something to do with chulapos. A chulapo, if you have never heard this term before, is a local working class man. A chulapa is a local working class woman, who tend to sort of have a little bit of a cheeky attitude. They're quite proud, and a lot of them like to poke fun of sort of upper class bourgeois habits. Many of these sort of habits, this sort of tradition of making fun of bourgeois habits goes all the way back to the 18th century, when the Bourbons came into power, and they used to mock all the new French habits coming in from France. They called people sorry, I totally mispronounced that, afrancesados, which is sort of a Frenchified fop. So anyone following the new traditions was a Frenchified fop. And this sort of disdain for French traditions maybe even intensified as the years went by, especially seeing as there's this very painful memory of Napoleon invading Madrid and a popular uprising happening in 1808, on the 2nd of May, 1808, by the way. So this sort of feeling intensified, and I even saw an exhibition recently where I found out that there's a word in Spanish that means sort of cheesy, I suppose would be the best translation of it. It's called cursi. And the term cursi comes from cursive. And this is because in the 19th century, they were even mocking fancy French ideas like cursive text. So 1909 rolls around, the early 20th century, and chulapos, the working class population, are mocking the new tradition of people drinking champagne and eating grapes. So they had their own version of this, and they would just eat grapes and sort of say, oh, we're very posh, like these posh, cursi afrancesado bourgeois people. And Spaniards, along with eating the grapes of luck, the uvas de suerte, they also drink champagne. And champagne is supposedly champagne, but of course, as we all know, champagne can't be champagne unless it's from the Champagne region in France. But try telling that to a Spanish person, because what they call champagne, it tends to be cava or Asturian cider. So you have a little bit of fizz, but God forbid that it's actually French fizz. It's Spanish fizz, 100%. So that about wraps things up for the year. What I'd like to do now is raise an imaginary glass of champagne and wish you a very happy Christmas and a fantastic new year. And I'll see you in 2025.